Babe hit 342 in a 22-year career and hit 714 home runs. Oh, by the way, won almost 100 games as a pitcher. He was playing against pretty good players back then. Now, you can argue about there was no integration back then. Okay. But he was still playing against the best players in baseball. And his numbers, he hit more home runs than teams did in some years. Would he dominate today? No, he would not. But let me take Adam Ottavino back to the 1920s. No supplements, no weightlifting, travel by train, no nutrition. And I want you to play the way they played under those conditions. How would Adam Ottavino do back in, let's say, 1920? And then I allow Babe Ruth to travel by charter, nutrition, weights, throw in some PEDs if you want to. Everybody else has been doing them. So I get to do that for Babe Ruth. Now, would Babe Ruth dominate the way he did back then in the 20s? It's possible, but unlikely. He was by far and away the best player. Imagine a clean Barry Bonds who could also pitch. He won 20 games a couple of times, I believe. He probably could have been a 300-game winner. So let me just factor that in. Everybody looks at Babe Ruth and goes, that fat guy? Okay. He wouldn't be fat now. He would be in shape now. And people, if you look, see what Baseball Reference has, Babe Ruth's height and weight, Paulie, because it will shock people how much Babe Ruth. If I said over, under 220 for Babe Ruth.
Under.
Everybody is going to take over, and he's probably under 200.
They have him listed at a couple places, 6'2", 215, 6'1", 210 in different places. Another thing, wouldn't Babe Ruth be facing faster pitches now, which would add to his power? Because the faster the pitch, the more chance there is for a home run. You don't have to be a physics major to know that. And so, I mean, he would have a chance to be more powerful now.
Well, the defenses are better. There's specialization. I understand, because you'd have pitchers who would pitch, 14 innings if they needed to. The shifts that are on for Babe Ruth, but he would still be playing in Yankee Stadium. And that's homer friendly. But Babe Ruth would be a different athlete now. And so would Adam Ottavino. He might be a guy who was drinking beer, eating hot dogs, smoking heaters. Yes, he.
Well, one, I think that we should not forget that I believe baseball players probably do still drink beer and eat hot dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that they're in better shape, but I mean, we're not that far removed from the Red Sox with chicken fingers and beers during the games and all that stuff. That's in this modern era for sure. But Adam Ottavino, I think he does actually have a point, though, because they're so highly specialized in pitching that they spend all this time with graphs and breaking down holes in someone's swing. And if you pitch the ball high and inside right here, Babe Ruth can never catch up to it. They have all of those stats that maybe in 1920 they had too, but it just doesn't seem like they were looking at the game that in depth then.
But if you're saying that, so would Ted Williams dominate now? Would Ted Williams still be a great hitter? Would Joe DiMaggio still be a great hitter? Would, go down the list. Shoeless Joe Jackson, Ty Cobb, would they be great hitters? The thing is how much better you were than your competitors. So when you're looking at greatness and you look at generational greatness, Tiger, the separation between Tiger and every other golfer is immense. But Jack Nicklaus wasn't so far ahead of everybody because Arnie and Lee Trevino and Tom Watson, they held their own with him. Jack's still the greatest golfer, but Tiger was so much better than everybody else. Babe Ruth was so much better than everybody else. Michael Jordan became so much better than everybody else. So when you argue generational talent, I have to factor that in. How good were you in your generation against your competitors? And I think that tells you an awful lot. There was nothing like Babe. First of all, there was no TV. You were reading it. Therefore, there was this element of fiction attached to it because it was like, how can this possibly be? How big is this guy, Babe Ruth? or you'd listen on radio. That factored in and made it even more, there was a mythological feel towards Babe Ruth. It was like, oh, my God, what's this guy really like? Whereas now we see everybody. We see everything. You see an entire game. You see when they're human. Babe, it felt like you just saw him hit home runs and waddle around the bases. He was above average fielder. I think he had over 100 stolen bases in his career, and he won nearly 90 games. I mean, just throw all that in. If he didn't pitch all those years and he was just a hitter, what would he had? 850 home runs? Yeah, Paulie.
Babe Ruth had a season where he had 59 home runs. Second place, the person had 24. 24. Yeah. They weren't in the vicinity of him.
And how many teams did he hit more home runs than? And like he hit
a bunch.
Yeah, he hit more home runs than teams did. Yeah, see.
And I apologize if somebody already said this, but weren't the fields way bigger then?
Oh, they were spacious,
gigantic.
Like you had a center field that was 454 feet away.
Yeah,
I think in Cleveland it was 454. They've encouraged you to hit home runs now.
Babe Ruth, that same season, he had 59 home runs. He was second in the league in triples. Not exactly something you would think he would be good at.
But back then you had spacious ballparks, and now they bring the fences in. They even turned a blind eye to steroids for years to help people hit home runs. So, yeah, McClellan.
We once asked a poll question, which sport has evolved the most over a century? Like if you put today's NBA guys against guys from 100 years ago, it feels like basketball has changed a lot and football size-wise has changed a lot.
Well, yeah, they're just better athletes.
More so than baseball. Baseball seems closer to old baseball. Because basketball, they didn't even, I saw, somebody was talking about this guy invented the jump shot in like 1948 or something. Like the game is so different.
Yeah, but baseball is still, I throw it and you hit it.
Right. It's much more similar.
I mean, what has changed is the speed of the pitches. And because there's far more pitchers that throw harder, the specialization, lefty on lefty, righty on righty, but you also have different pitches, But back then, you could throw a spitball. When Babe Ruth was playing, you could throw a spitball, and it was legal. The athletes are far better, covering more ground. The integration part is huge. No, it is. The integration part is huge. And Babe would barnstorm and play against Josh Gibson and Satchel Paige, and he did the same thing to them that he did to Major League pitching. Babe was a transcendent player, but he was helped by the generation of when he played because it was all word of mouth.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.